Hello everyone, I'm Stephen and I'm the Learning Technology Support Manager, so I lead a small support team back at the university. I'm really interested in bite-sized CPD, and kind of what I mean by that is we offer lots of workshops, and you pick a point in time and people can make it and some people can't, and then often that's the opportunity lost, and you might get an email that says, well, can I have the slides? And I said, well, the slides are no use to you whatsoever, so we'll kind of meet you one-to-one. So I like the idea of trying to put some of our skills-based sessions online, including a one-to-one, because I like the idea of trying to learn a skill. You visit it on day one, you have a day off, you come back to it, time off, and you come back to it. And this idea of learning through iterative steps so this is the first of our courses around that. So we designed it, myself and my colleagues, Leslie and Julia. The idea of this course is to give staff an experience of being an online learner, put them in the shoes of a student, and but also to let them evaluate some of the Moodle tools that we have and some of the other tools that we have at the institution. We really experience it as a student. This course runs over 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, there's a face-to-face component for a bit of discussion, a bit of reflection. It's the second time we've run it. We ran it last year over a shorter period of time. We've made some adjustments, and what was I going to say? Yeah, so we just done the second one last week, so it's really hot off the press. And so I'm going to cover the kind of themes that we've based the course activities around, and just kind of share some reflections on how things went. So this is the course layout. We picked 4 themes that we thought was pertinent to online learning. There's more than 4, but we've only got 2 weeks, so we just picked 4. That's the top ones there. There's a section for a final reflective activity, and we think that's a really important part, is to get staff to not just learn something, but to reflect on what they've learned, put it into practice. We find it's a bit of a motivating factor in getting them to complete the course. We've got another section there for a WebEx session, which I'll come to. Now, all the sections are open right from the start. The last time we ran the course, we were trying to progress people through in a coherent way, keeping people all on the same topic. So we employed the restrict access. It was a terrible decision. We got terrible feedback. Things around, well, I've finally got time to spend on the course, and now I can't move on because section 2 is not open till 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we just left all the sections open right from the very start. You can see we're using the completion progress as well. Now, the other piece of feedback that we got was from the first time that we ran it, was staff were really keen to have some kind of synchronous learning opportunity. We did everything asynchronously last time. So we have WebEx at the institution, so we offered 4 sessions, and the participants could just choose one of those. And the idea here was for me to give them a tour of the facilities, but also to facilitate a bit of a discussion around how they've been using this kind of technology in their teaching practice. We also wanted to hold this. A lot of the course and a lot of staff development, of course, is around modelling good practice. One of the things we wanted to promote was the use of audio in discussion forums, particularly for welcome messages. So in week 1, the opening welcome message was an audio recording, and then in week 2, my colleague Julia, she recorded an audio message which was a summary of what had gone on in the first week, picking out her personal highlights. So we really wanted to push the use of audio because it's such a simple and effective way of really enhancing the facilitator's online presence. Okay, so then on to the themes. In terms of the structure, we tried to keep everything really consistent. So for every theme, there was 3 things to do. There was a resources page where there would be something to read or to listen to or to watch. And then there would be some kind of participative activity, and then some kind of sharing activity. So it was always very consistent that way. For this number 1 theme, so this is online social presence. So this theme is really all about how making students feel comfortable and making them feel part of an online learning community really has a big impact on their success, their performance, and just generally their experience online. In terms of the resources, we used a podcast that we had in one of our PG Cert modules. So in that podcast, it talks about some of the strategies that a tutor can employ to combat feelings of social isolation in a fully online course. And then the participative part, we introduced our staff to Padlet. We've got an institutional version of Padlet. If you've not used Padlet before, it's a really great tool, really informal tool. And we picked the topic of memorable journeys for people to share because, well, it's very inclusive. Everyone can share a memorable journey, whether it's a positive or a negative one. And it's a topic that really lends itself well to stories, narratives, and sharing of images. So that went down really well. And of course, we did use the obligatory discussion forum. We used that in 2 of our topics, and not in all of them. What we were trying to do, we knew that we've got a range of participants. Some of the academics have taught online, some of them have not. We also have participants from the professional services who've never taught at all. So we try and make the discussions as inclusive as possible by offering people a choice of perspectives to contribute from. Okay, so the second of the theme was around digital literacies. We know that there are multiple frameworks for articulating digital literacies. And so really what we wanted participants to get was a sense of what this topic meant for them in terms of their digital capabilities and the capabilities of their students. In terms of the resources, we had a couple of videos. So we had David White's video around this notion of visitors and residents, kind of articulating how individuals can interact with the web, and also Doug Belshaw's TEDx talk, where he talks about his essential components of digital literacies, and we linked out to the JISC framework as well, because it's got some nice top tips. So that was the resources part. Now, in terms of an activity around digital literacies, we used the University of Exeter's iTest, so a shout out to the university if anybody's here. The purpose of this test is you complete 30 questions and it generates a profile. And the idea of this activity was really to get the participants to reflect on how they apply their digital skills across a range of educational contexts. We then put in a discussion forum after that, and we had some really good discussions around what student engagement looks like online, particularly around the concept of the lurker, that is, someone who is participating in a course, but it's not very visible to the tutor, and I'm going to come to that kind of at the end as well. Okay, so the third topic was all around the kinds of coursework assessment that lends itself well to online learning, and also about the general characteristics that can engage students with the subject matter and engage students with each other. So we're thinking things like giving students some kind of choice or control over their assessment, allowing them to continuously engage with a wide range of resources, and also giving them opportunities for collaboration. In terms of the participative part, we based it around PeerWise. I don't know if people are familiar with PeerWise. It's a great online tool, free to use. And the idea here is that students collaborate together to generate multiple choice questions. Now, I know MCQs get a bit of a bad rep in terms of just answering them, but in terms of the learning, building an MCQ question, there's actually a lot of learning in there. You've got to come up with a good question stem. You've got to come up with convincing distractors, so that will avoid or mitigate against guesswork, and then come up with good explanations. And so here in this system, the students will anonymously evaluate each other's questions. So the idea in bringing it into this course is we want to give the participants just some feeling of collaborating online in order to produce a digital artifact. So in this case, they all had to produce a good multiple choice question. We then routed them into Padlet for the reflective part. And we just set up Padlet a little bit differently, just giving them some prompts or some headings to contribute to thoughts about PeerWise and online assessment in general. Most of the comments came around the gamification part of PeerWise. Now, within PeerWise, you get a score, your reputation score. And that score is based on how you interact with the system. Your score goes up if you comment fairly on other people's questions and they agree with that comment. Or if you engage early and so that you're the first to comment, your score goes up. It's quite a difficult algorithm to get your head around, and I think that's one of the difficulties when staff see it for the first time and see this notion of a reputation score and don't really understand how it comes about. WebPA, I find, is kind of similar. It produces an algorithm that's not that transparent, and it does kind of throw up kind of odd opinions and kind of behaviours. Also, it comes up with badges and so on as well. So there is a good gamification part, although it did throw up some consternation a little bit. Okay. So our fourth theme then was around the affordances of educational media. So here we were introducing staff to Diana Laurillard's conversational framework, and particularly around the 5 forms of educational media that she has described. So that's things like a narrative media, interactive, adaptive, communicative type media, productive type media as well. So the resources were to show how you can have interactive and adaptive media using the existing Moodle tools. So we had a link to how you can transform a YouTube video from a narrative resource into an interactive resource by overlaying an H5P on it. Also a link to a lesson to show an example of an adaptive tool. And we gave them some access to, well, we just provided links to some open access resources or repositories so they could search. Then we asked them to go and find a resource or provide a link to a resource or plan a resource and bring that into the course glossary, which we structured around the 5 media forms. And then I would use the comments tool there to provide a little bit of feedback. The only thing about the comments tool is that, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't provide any notifications. So the participants didn't know that they had received any feedback unless they came back, so unless I'm missing something. So again, we're trying to showcase the tools in different ways. So that was the 4 themes, and then the final thing was a reflective activity. So here we were asking the participants to reflect on their 2 weeks online and to reflect on the themes that they had covered and how they might apply these in their, or how they are currently applying them in their professional practice. So we just used the assignment tool for this. We didn't grade it or anything, but I did leave some feedback. And this is where you really can find out the impact of a course, is when you have that reflective analysis. So the reflections would touch on things like how difficult it is to engage in a course like this when you're trying to deal with competing demands, i.e. the same for students. They would touch on things like it's very easy to be discouraged when completing a task when you're being faced by a technology that's new to you and you don't know how it works and how you fit within it. And also just generally putting themselves in the shoes of students. And that was really the idea of the course. We wanted them to feel that discomfort. I didn't say it in the course aims, but that is really what we were after, so that they'll be a little bit more thoughtful when they're coming to designing their own. And we also got some nice feedback just around being introduced to new technologies, because staff don't know what they don't know. Just finally, just around course participation. So we had 17 people sign up for the course, which lasted 2 weeks. And this is the participation from the last week of the course, i.e. when it finished. So you can see about 1/3 engaged fully, 1/3 engaged sporadically, and 1/3 not at all. By the end of the first week, I mean, it was all blue. There was no green on the board. I was terribly depressed. Did send out a few emails, and that did seem to then bring people in. And you do have to reach out to people and kind of offline, as it were, and kind of cajole people in a little bit. As I said, there's a lot of blue in the board, and during our discussions, we were talking about the kinds of course participation that are not particularly visible to facilitators. So I had a look at the course logs for this little middle group, where they didn't engage from the progress bar's point of view. It didn't look as though they were engaging that much. But actually, when you look at the log files, so the top one there's someone who has completed 2 of the tasks, but actually they just went in for 40 minutes, did 2 tasks, and never came back again. Whereas there was 2 others there who didn't really complete the tasks as far as the progress bar is concerned, but actually logged in reasonably regularly and spent a lot more time. So I guess what I'm saying is the progress bar is not telling you everything, and it'd be quite nice if Moodle could somehow surface this invisible learning that takes place. I did say to participants that the course would take about 4 hours. That was a figure I just picked out of the air. I had no idea how long it would take to complete it. And when I had a look at kind of the top student, as it were, well, they took over 10 hours. I think the message is it's very difficult to predict and to say for certain just how long a particular course is going to take them. Okay, so just to conclude then, those of us involved in staff development or supporting staff, it's all about modelling good practice and trying, where we can, to show how good you can make Moodle, make it look in terms of nice, unstructured layouts, well signposted materials, good facilitation skills, always responding promptly to participation, making people feel part of a community. Okay, showing tools I think I've covered. The course duration is important. We ran it for less than 2 weeks last time. It was too short. People couldn't engage. If you have it too long, you're giving opportunities for people to disengage and procrastinate. So you have to think quite carefully about that. Design for inclusion. Give people from a wide variety of backgrounds an opportunity to contribute from their perspective. Create a community with synchronous learning opportunities, and some forms of participation are less visible than others. And that is just a few references there. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting, and if you don't mind me saying, really good screenshots as well, actually. Okay. Questions, please? And we have a couple of extra minutes as well, so we can have extra questions. One at the front.
Stephen, I really enjoyed that. It is a lovely model of CPD, I think, particularly for those who are new to online teaching and learning, and putting the lecturers and the teachers and the students' shoes. Excellent. I was just interested, how did you get those 17 participants in? And then the other thing I was interested in, you gave a certificate of achievement. Did you consider digital badges at all, or was that enough for people? Okay,
so the certificate I just put up at the end, I didn't think about a certificate, but one of the participants asked, is there a certificate? So I quickly made one. So it didn't look as that great, but that was, I mean, I felt fantastic when they had asked for that. I mean, it's like, oh, this is actually meaning something. So I was really pleased about that. In terms of getting them, the first time round is providence. It's all about timing, synchronicity. You can never tell. The first time around, there was a learning and teaching series going on, and I was asked, can I come in and facilitate a 3-hour face-to-face workshop on online learning? How am I going to do that? So I suggested, why don't we come online, we'll do a course, and then we'll do a face-to-face thing as a wrap-up. So the first time round, that's what we did. The second time around, I got the benefit because our HR department started sending round all staff emails showing, here are all the learning events that are taking place. So I said, can you put together an email for me? Here's all of my learning technology events. Part of that, part through local networks as well, really exploiting your contents and calling in a few favours that people have built up over the years.
Hello, Stephen. I think that was fantastic as well. What a great model to use for staff time and to expand their experience. But I was wondering, did you hit only new staff, or were there more experienced staff who came along as well?
I think, no, let me just think. No, there was some old staff. No, there was definitely a range of staff. Also, people who. I was very surprised because they're experienced staff. So no, it wasn't just new staff. A good mixture. And as I say, some from the professional services who were new, who are just doing a little bit of student support. So again, trying to be inclusive of them. But no, a good wide range. Well, I'm going to run it again, but I'd like to try a different course. I'm thinking of doing something around Mahara, something a little bit more skills-based that gives people the opportunity to... We can take our time to take them through the affordances of that technology and give them little tasks so they can build up skills over a period of time rather than come along to a 3-hour workshop and we'll try and cram it all in, and then you won't look at it again for another 6 months and you're gone. So I'm not going to make it any longer. There is a little bit of debate about how these kind of courses tie into the PG Cert, and we've got another PG Cert called Blended Online Education, and whether we can take some of that out and build little 2-week courses that give people a bit of a taster rather than something that lasts 15 weeks and it's accredited, because it's not accredited even though they get a great certificate. Oh, right at the back.
Oh,
Right at the back.
Thanks very much. That was really interesting. Have you asked any of the people who are already on the course if they've used it in the classrooms at all? If you get any kind of feedback after when they're going back and using it sort of for real?
Well, we just had the wrap-up session last week. So it was all about their intentions, and some of them who are already teaching online are saying, well, Padlet looks okay, but it seems very visual. I don't think it's going to work for me. I'm definitely going to investigate peer-wise because I need to help build up a bank of questions. So kind of yes and no, mostly intentions, but one of the great things about the reflection is that they were talking about things like, oh yeah, I realise I've designed my assessment right. I don't really need to turn it all upside down. So a lot of it was about validating what they already do. And that's as equally valuable as trying something new. They've got it right, kind of first or second time around. Yeah.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.